Hey guys, if you haven't already, give the video a like, subscribe to my channel. This is a what if series and I'll be doing more down the road. Plus Ultra. Hey guys, and welcome back to What If Naruto was Mitsuri's Reincarnation Part 3. Now, thank you for the support of this series. I'm going to be releasing more videos like that. Just had to get everything down and where the direction that I wanted to make this one go in. So yeah, with that being said, sorry for the wait, but let's get back into where we left off. So, of course, Haku said her little thing to Naruto, and Naruto blushed by this. Now, of course, the things do play out. Now, if I didn't mention this in the first video, I do apologize. But if I did mention it, I might be just mentioning it again. But while Team 7 makes their way towards the big bridge, after doing the training, set training from that, Naruto would stay behind and protected he would have protected Inari's mother from danger. So with that being said, that Nari's mother wouldn't have died because Naruto would have been there to kill those two bandits. And in the words of Naruto, those who hurt my friends could never make my heart waver. So Naruto would look back at Inari and basically hug him and tell him that everything's going to be all right. Now, Inari would blush from this, but he was also hug Naruto back and say thank you. Now, this is where Naruto would run off to basically join her team on the bridge, helping Tazuna build the bridge. Now, of course, Haku and Zabuza would show up. Now, this is where Sasuke gets into a battle with Haku, and then both of them get into a heated battle at that. Sasuke is bleeding around Haku while Haku is keeping up with Sasuke at the same time. And then both of them, while Haku has a kunai out and is clinging blades with Sasuke, Sasuke just yells out, and breathes and says, as the electricity in his voice, thunder breathing, first form, thunderclap and flash, as Sasuke waves his sword right past Haku's head, and Haku ducks under the attack, basically sweating from this. And Haku saying, I was holding back. Guess I don't have to hold back against this kid. After seeing what he did to Master Zabuza, I wasn't gonna go all out. But after seeing something like that, now Sasuke would be surprised. Then he would say eightfold thunderclap and flash and try to hit Haku a second time, but Haku is keeping up with Sasuke's speed at this point. And then this is where Sasuke and Haku is getting to a heated battle, to which Haku forms the the 8 mirrors around Sasuke, and Sasuke is just looking around as he just breathes out and closes his eyes. Then Sasuke opens his eyes to reveal his Sharingan. Yes, with the training that Sasuke put himself through and trying to master total concentration constant, yes, Sasuke has awakened his Sharingan. Although it's only in the Tutomoe state, still though, he's still awakened his Sharingan nonetheless. Anyway, now Sasuke is throwing multiple shots, trying to deflect each Senbon that is coming his way. Haku is throwing multiple high-speed Senbon at Sasuke's way, but with Sasuke's Sharingan and his total concentration, constant breathing, he's managing to keep up with Haku pretty well. So with all that being said, Sasuke then says, under breathing, first form, thunderclap and flash, as he tried to hit Haku jumping from mirror to mirror, but he missed just by an inch. Haku got cut across the back, and Sasuke basically says, and he looks at Haku, who's basically getting infuriated by this, and basically Haku ups the more, basically uses more effort trying to kill Sasuke. Now, with that being said, while Haku and Sasuke's battle is getting heated, we're gonna start saying that, but I don't know what that was. But we're gonna go over to Kakashi and Sakura's fight with Zabuza. Now, while Zabuza is getting into a heated battle with Kakashi and Sakura, Sakura is causing Zabuza some problems right now. And he already has a vendetta out against Sakura in the first place. So his first target is Sakura, but Kakashi is right there in his face too. But Sakura then says she couldn't use that first breathing style because it didn't suit her very well. So she switched it up. So she then breathes out as this water-like pattern just comes out, and she says, First form, water breathing, water surface slash, and swings her sword at Zabuza, which Zabuza dodge, and the both of them clings blades together, which Kakashi comes out of nowhere and kicks Zabuza directly in the side. And this is where Sakura then says, second form, water wheel, and tries to cleave off Zabuza's arm, to which Zabuza basically rotated his blade and caught Zabuza's blade in that basically loop that Zabuza's blade got. I'm pretty sure some of you Naruto fans know what I'm talking about. Zabuza's blade got a basically indent in it. So basically what he did is caught Sakura's blade just like that, saving himself from getting his arm lopped off. Now, this is where Sakura then basically grabs her sword, and then she says, third form, flowing dance. This is where Sakura bends and twists and used all her trying, basically dancing around Zabuza to make it more proficient. So as she does this, she cuts Zabuza across the back, cut Zabuza on the arm, and then cut Zabuza directly on his side, going through three different spots as if she's moving like water. Now this is where Sakura would then coat her sword in water and then say fourth form, striking tide, hitting Zabuza with multiple consecutive strikes while slashes while twisting their body and sword in a flowing flashing to deliver multiple blows simultaneously. So while Zabuza was getting pelted, like slashed all across his body, he get his basically face cut across, and Sakura then kicks Zabuza directly in the chest, sending him flying back. Now Zabuza skips rocks on the ground and then gathers his stance and looks at Sakura with pure malice in his eyes. Now this is where Zabuza would grab his sword and bend over, to which Kakashi and Sakura would feel the bloodlust emanating from Zabuza. Zabuza's voice just grows dark, and he looks at Sakura and he tells her, "You stupid girl! How dare you? How dare you?" And he rushes at Sakura and basically swings his sword in a fast motion, to which Sakura tries to block with her blade, but she ends up getting cut across the chest. Now this is where Zabuza would come right in and punch Sakura directly in the face. Sakura basically doesn't know what this is, but she just says to herself, "Concentrate, focus on your breathing." She basically takes out a huge breath and gathers her stance, but Zabuza is right there in front of her, and Sakura gets punched in the stomach, coughing up blood and spit. This is where Kakashi comes in and punches Zabuza directly in the face, and then basically tries to stab him in the neck with the kunai, but Kakashi gets uppercutted by Zabuza and kicked away, to which Zabuza is right in Sakura's face again, and Sakura just basically maneuvers herself by saying, basically what Sakura does is she does the same thing that Tanjiro did, only basically dodging Zabuza's attack. Now she appears right next to Kakashi, and Kakashi is getting ready to do basically getting into the same form as Sasuke, and basically just getting into a breath style, and Sakura just puts out her hand and says, "Kakashi, let me do this. Let me be the one." And he looks at Sakura and says, "Sakura, you're basically on your last leg. You cannot keep this up. Your body cannot handle it. You're gonna basically end up killing yourself." And she says, "Let me prove myself. I don't want to be known as a fangirl of some useless thing. I want to actually put in work. I want to actually do something. So let me have this one. Just please, Kakashi, don't take this opportunity from me when I'm so close at beating this guy." To which Kakashi would look at Sakura and he would just say, "Very well. But once I see the first sign of you struggling or you're on the verge of death, I'm jumping in." And she says, "Thank you, Kakashi. Thank you." She would look back at Zabuza, to which Zabuza is just basically looking at her with a very menacing look on his face, and he tells her, "You know something about you, girl. You make my skin crawl. I don't like you. Why won't you just die? Why are you guys protecting the bridge builder anyway?" "I can ask you the same thing. Why are you working for a selfish prick like Gato?" "Gato basically pays me. He gives me money. So, what is it to you about what I do with my daily life?" This is where Sakura would say that you're causing these people poverty. You've pushed each and every one of these people into the state of depression. Do you think that's life? Do you think that's living? This land is barely getting by. I'm surprised that it's still around due to people like you. Your existence is not needed in this world. People like you prey on the weak. You do whatever the payer pays you to do without questioning it. That sickens me. And this is the sole reason why I won't lose to you. Now Sakura gets determined as she clutches her blade and basically gets into a different stance, looking directly at Zabuza with pure malice in her eyes. Sakura then clenches her sword as the water beneath the bridge starts to rumble. And Sakura then rushes at Zabuza, to which Zabuza returns. And the both of them clash with swords clinging back and forth. Now we flash forward back over to where Naruto is. Now Naruto has just made her way back to the bridge. Now she senses that Sakura basically looks at her and she gives her that look of determination that she knows she's gonna win. Now Naruto is basically fluttered by this. She looks over to Sasuke and basically goes over to where Sasuke is. And basically what Naruto is doing is basically watching, seeing what Sasuke does, seeing what he can do in this situation. Now, Naruto is very analytical at this situation right here because she knows that if she goes in there, her sword, well, it can be very helpful, but Sasuke is in there and in such a closed space, Naruto doesn't know that she might end up hitting him with her sword. She doesn't want to test that theory right now. She's contemplating whether her sword would be even very useful in such a tight space with Sasuke being there. She thinks that if she used her sword to basically try to deflect some of the attacks in there, like a ribbon, I mean, she could, but Sasuke might get caught up in the crossfire. So she's basically just thinking about this, contemplating her thoughts, basically crying, doing this and that, basically talking to herself, to which Haku sees, and Sasuke is basically just having a straight face by saying, Naruto, what are you doing? As Sasuke is basically looking at Naruto, and Naruto just waves her hand and says, hi, Sasuke. And this is where Sasuke basically is looking at Naruto while he's deflecting Senbon away. Now this pisses Haku off right here. This boy right in front of her is not paying any attention to him, like at all. Any attention to him at all. Basically taking him like he's not a threat. To which Sasuke looks back at Haku with his Sharingan ablazing and saying, enough of this. To which Sasuke basically radiates electricity over his sword and says, since you interrupted the fight the first time when I was getting ready to kill Zabuza, it's only fair that I show you the move that I was going to show him. Sasuke would then swing his sword at what's basically Haku and unleash 5 consecutive lightning strikes, like lightning slash like strikes at Haku, to which Haku would basically retort to a mirror and throw more Senbon at Sasuke, to which he's deflecting. But then Sasuke would say, third form, Thunder Swarm, and in each and every mirror that Haku's clone standing in get hit with lightning very fast. As he looks at Sasuke with pure, like, how did you? And that's where Sasuke basically sees the real one. And in a split motion, he basically blitzes Haku fast before he could, it's so confused, whatever. But before he could reach his mirror, Sasuke stabs Haku directly through the stomach and basically bursts out of the mirrors, basically out of the whole dome in a burst of electricity, to which Naruto had jumped away from Sasuke's attack. Now this is where Sasuke is on the ground, basically with his sword in Haku's stomach, and this is where he looks at him and says, you've lost. And this is where Sasuke basically has electricity and he generates it through Haku's body. And a boy screams out in agony. As this is where Naruto says, Sasuke, that's enough. He's down. And Sasuke says, he pulls out his sword and basically throws off the blood and sheaves his blade. And he says, yes, it is enough. Basically walks away. Sasuke just walks away nonchalantly. And Naruto basically just says, She looks back at Haku and basically kneels back down to Haku and takes off the mask. You're the boy I seen in the forest. Well, I can only feel very bad for you right now. As Naruto would start crying. Now, of course, this would have shocked Sasuke as he turns around and asks Naruto why she's crying. And he she tells Sasuke that, well, I met this guy in the forest and he just shows so much care. It pains me to see people who show basically serve a guy like that, Zabuza. And basically Naruto is basically crying about this, but Sasuke comes over and basically tells her that it's all right. He was just doing what his master told him to do. But in the end of the day, he would have sacrificed himself for him. And did you feel that? Well, he was hiding his emotions during fighting me. But the moment I plunged my blade through his stomach, I started to feel the boy's emotions. I started to feel your emotions. As Haku looked at Sasuke and Naruto. This is where Sasuke would kneel down and says, if I would have felt your emotions earlier, I wouldn't have did what I did. I kind of regret it now. You could have been saved. You still could. But Haku said, no, I can't. It's funny to me that you two are showing me such care, you don't hold or harbor any hatred for me. As Haku manages to stand up, and this is where Naruto says, you shouldn't move with a wound like that. And Sasuke says, yes, you need to lay back down. You can still be saved. As Haku would have said, no, I can't. Haku would have teleported away, and this is where we fast forward back to Sakura and Zabuza's fight. Now remember when I said Sakura clenched her sword and she looked at Zabuza with a face of malice? This is where water would start to come from under the bridge and go into Sakura's sword as she basically waves her sword and this water-like dragon comes out. To which Zabuza sees this and basically Sakura rushes at Zabuza and hits him with multiple slashes, cuts, punches, kicks, everything. But Zabuza basically sees Sakura as a blur. He doesn't even see the attacks coming, and the attacks that he do block cracks his blade. Sakura is releasing so much strength right now to the point that she's basically doing that same thing that Tanjiro did, not breathing at all. Sakura is basically putting her all into basically defeating Zabuza. Now with this, as she's doing this, she's getting ready to basically swing her sword and cut off Zabuza's head. She's like, right there. It's right there. And Haku basically comes right in front of Zabuza and gets his head cut right off. And to Naruto and Sasuke's horror, the boy sacrificed himself for Zabuza. To which made Naruto cry and just made Sasuke bow his head. In the end, you went out like a tool instead of choosing your own path. This is where Sasuke would look at Zabuza with anger, and so would Naruto. And this is where Sakura would just back off from this as, just, what? And Sakura would then start to breathe as she hits one knee. This is where Kakashi would say, Sakura, you're right. And Zabuza, sorry about that, Zabuza would just be standing there and he would look and say, well, you served your purpose, haven't you? Sakura would look back at him and say, you monster! You treated this guy like a tool, didn't you? Knowing that he would have did that for you. You have no heart, you pathetic bastard. As Zabuza is looking at Sakura and saying, so, you think you can just talk down to me like that, girl? But before he could do so, Zabuza's arm and leg would be cut off. Well, basically cut off by Kakashi and Sasuke. And basically Naruto would be right there and say something like, you doesn't deserve to exist. You are pathetic. And cuts off Zabuza's head as Zabuza's body would fall dead on the ground. This happened so fast to which Zabuza was shocked when his arm and leg came shooting off. He was shocked by this, and all of a sudden when Naruto stand by that, this man was in a state of basically, what the just happened? Just like that. So basically the threat was evaded. Zabuza and Haku died. Basically, they weren't being able to save this one. So with that, Gato and his men would accompany onto the bridge. And the Team 7 would make short work of them. Very short work of them. They don't even need to go in that. They get their ass kicked. So the bridge gets built, and it would be named the Great Naruto Bridge. Oh, but the Land of Waves would thank Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, and Naruto for all their hard work. It really is going to be named Team 7 because this was a whole Team 7 effort. So it wouldn't be named the Great Naruto Bridge. It would really be named Team 7. So with that being said, they all would journey back to the Leaf Village, and this is where, Kakashi would go on to do his own thing. Now, Konoha would come up out of nowhere, and he would basically run at Naruto. Basically, like, Konoha and Naruto is like big sister, little brother. And, of course, Ino would be there, and she would hug Sakura and Naruto. Now, this is where she hasn't seen them two in a while, but she sees that Sakura was had a little, basically, some bruises on her and everything. And she would tell Naruto, you're not doing a very good job protecting her. And this is where Naruto would just basically wave her hands and everything. And she's saying, I was training her. She's just getting stronger. I promise you. And most of this time, Sakura's doing this damage to herself. She's basically been pushing herself over the edge. That's not from me. I've not been telling her to do that. But she does have great willpower that I must give her a compliment on. Now, with that being said, of course, everyone would catch back up and go eat food and stuff like that. And this is where Konoha would challenge Naruto to attack the hide and seek, to which Naruto would win, finding Konoha everywhere. And Konoha would just have his head hanging down low because he's mad that Naruto found him everywhere. And then this is where he would ask, hey, big sis, would you train me? And Naruto would look down and she would say, only if you manage to beat me at hide and seek one day. And this is where Konoha would cry and say, that's no fair. You're a god at hide and seek. I'm never gonna win. And this is where she would just basically finger poke Konoha in the head, and she would say, you don't know that if you don't try. You have to put more effort into it. I basically can sense your chakra, Konoha. So if you learn to conceal your presence, then maybe you won't be found. As she gives him a warm smile. Now, Konoha would think about this, but he has a blush on his face, and then he runs away. And he ends up bumping into Kankuro. Now, Kankuro would look back, and he would grab Konoha by the hair and say, whose runt is this? To which he would feel a hand grasp around his wrist. Then Kankuro would look to see that it's Naruto who has a hand around his wrist, and she says, let him go right now. And her hand, Naruto is basically crushing Kankuro's wrist as he feels the strain from this girl. How can this girl have so much power? He feels as if a Jonin instructor is clutching his wrist. Now, with that, Naruto does have some normal strength for a female. So with that, Naruto basically is squeezing tighter and tighter till Kankuro lets Konoha go. And then she basically says, there, was that so hard? And she looks at Konoha, who's basically all teared up about it. And she says, there, you're all right. Now, this is where she looks back at Kankuro, not smiling. And she says, who are you two? Basically, from what I can tell, you're from the Sand Village. So what are two Sen Genin doing here? And this is where Kankuro would say, we're here for the Chunin exams. Seems like you're well informed. Your village doesn't give you information very well. And this is where Naruto would just smile at Kankuro and says, the Chunin exams. Oh, that explains it. Well, don't go doing something like that again, because you see, this is the third Hokage's grandson, and you just grabbed him by the head. You could have started a war, between two villages, and that wouldn't have been very pleasant. A lot of casualties would have happened, and that would have been on your case. So with that, Gaara would have came out of nowhere, and this is where Naruto would have said, it's about time you came up out of that tree. I'm surprised. This is where Gaara would say, Kankuro, Tamari, if you ever do that again, I'll kill you both. Now Naruto would go frantic and say, wow, how could you say something like that to your teammates? That's so cruel. You're so evil-hearted. How could you say something like that? And this is where Gaara would say, I can't wait to face you in the exams. I'm gonna crush you. I'm gonna crush you for mother. As Gaara and Tamari and Kankuro would walk away. Now, this is where Gaara would then feel a presence in the tree as he looks up at the tree to see Sasuke basically staring at him. And this is where Sasuke would then arch a smile, to which Gaara didn't know Sasuke was even there. Now, they were both in the same tree, but Gaara this time didn't know Sasuke was there. His presence was so sealed to the point that Sasuke was just up in the tree meditating, just basically breathing. And he instantly noticed that Gaara sensed him in the tree, and he just basically wanted to brag about that notification. Anyway, so as everything played out, Kakashi would come tell Team 7 about the Chunin exams, and this is where the Chunin exams would start. Now, of course, the team would make their way to the Genjutsu and get past that whole thing, and even, well, Sakura would even laugh that Tenten got slapped. So, yeah, with that all being said, Rock Lee would come in out of nowhere and challenge Sasuke to a fight, to which Naruto would say, what's your name again? And he would say, my name is Rock Lee. And this is where Naruto would say, yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, you really don't want to fight him. He's got incredibly strong. And this is where Naruto would say, Rock Lee would say, well, I'm incredibly strong too. And Naruto would say, really? Her eyes would flutter. And this is where Rock Lee would get a blush at this. And Sasuke would get a tick by this. And this is where he would say, very well, I accept your challenge. Now, Sasuke, with progression, is going to start representing more like Igoro from Demon Slayer. He's going to start with people start to basically show like feelings towards it. He's going to get in his feelings about that. If you already haven't known, yes, basically it's a Sasuke and Naruto ship. Yeah, that's the route I'm going. So anyway, with that, Sasuke gets a tick in his forehead, and this is where Sasuke just says, without no sword, he's not going to try to kill Rock Lee, obviously. So without no sword, Sasuke just basically gets into a stance as him and Rock Lee start fighting. Now, Sasuke is controlling his breathing and keeping up with Rock Lee very well. Like, incredibly well. To which Rock Lee tries to do that whole kick on Sasuke, to which Sasuke dodges and kicks Rock Lee's leg from under him, to which Rock Lee would do a handstand flip and try to do his multiple kick thing against Sasuke, to which Sasuke would dodge and kick Rock Lee directly in the back, sending him into a wall. Now, this is where Rock Lee would jump back and get into a taijutsu bout with Sasuke, and Sasuke would unleash his Sharingan, to which Sasuke would then say, thunder breathing, first form, thunderclap and flash. All of a sudden, in a flash of speed, Sasuke punched Rock Lee directly in the face and basically crashed Rock Lee into the wall. Now, Sasuke would say, oops, I didn't mean to release that much strength. This is where Naruto would just be hitting Sasuke on the back, very cartoonish, like, you know, like in anime, you know what I'm talking about. And she would tell Sasuke not to use too much power, even making a pout face. To which Sasuke would just scratch his head and say, I didn't know how much power I used. Sorry. So Rock Lee would get back up from that and brush himself off, but he would feel the attack from that was... Woo. So Rock Lee might have to go to the hospital. He might have to retire from the damn Chunin exams. That attack might have rigged his body, but he's not. He's very determined and everything. And this is where Mike Guy would come in and or he would just basically come in to see what Team 7 looks like and everything. So all that would play out normal. So I'm not really going to go over the test and everything, because everything like that point goes exactly the same way. Naruto really does the same thing. She does the same thing her counterpart did in canon with screaming out and nothing like that. Basically just admiring people because she finished answering the test and basically just looking around. But one thing about this guy and this teacher in the classroom just gives her this, Ikabe just gives her, rubs her the different way, just gives her this ominous, psychotic presence about him. Now, anyway, we're going to fast forward to the Forest of Death. And Uncle hands out all the flyers to which they sign, and then she gives half the team an Earth Scroll and a Heaven Scroll. Now, with that being said, the team goes into basically get the other scrolls. They journey around the forest, and basically they have their whole bout where they do their code and everything. And yeah, we're going to skip past the graphic part. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, imagine Naruto as a boy and how he got jumped in that whole situation. Yeah, we're going to skip past that. So yeah, the team ran into Orochimaru, and Naruto ended up getting swallowed by a snake, to which Naruto does the whole shadow clone jutsu and basically burst out, or like all the shadow clones just burst out of what's the name, the snake, and she just looks around to where she's at, just trying to find out where did she go at. Now with that, Orochimaru then meets Sasuke and Sakura. Now he does this whole genjutsu thing, but with Sakura and Sasuke right now, they just stab themselves and then they get into a stance to which Sakura says water breathing, first form, thunder breathing, first form, and they both rush at Orochimaru in like a lightning-filled current. And Sakura slashes off Orochimaru's arm, and Sasuke almost slashes off Orochimaru's head. But some weird thing happened to which Orochimaru elongated his head and dodged Sasuke's sword slash. To which Sasuke said, "Gross." Now, which Sasuke would jump back from Orochimaru, and Orochimaru would look at Sasuke and says, "Those eyes, Sasuke, I want them." And that's where I'm going to leave part 3 of What If Naruto Was Mitsuri's Reincarnation. Now, if we get 40 likes on this video, I'll release part 4 soon as possible. Sorry it took so long for this video to come out, but I was just kind of contemplating, like, what kind of direction can I send it in, though? But I'm having fun with this What If. So I hope you guys like it, show your support, and I promise you I'm going to be consistent with my content. But sometimes if I stay away for like 6 days or something like that, it's just me contemplating like what route I can take my stories in. You feel me? So anyway, you guys have a good day, a good night, and plus ultra. Good night, guys.
君の虜になってしまう